the Hasidic Jews don't give a fuck about nothing else. Like, we care about us. Like, I'm Jewish too. Like, do you? No, you're not. Get the fuck out of my face. Nigga, like, come on, man. Let me in. Let me in the community. No. You gonna come down to my synagogue? Absolutely not. That shit's not pure. We getting the fuck. You getting and you getting the fuck out of here. They ain't rocking with that shit. They like leading people be, and it goes back and forth. Leave them motherfuckers alone. Right? But y'all always want to just poke at what another nigga doing. Like, just leave me alone. You niggas, boy, woo-wee. Man. So anyway. So that was a little harsh. Let's lighten it up. Those are the two things that are on my mind. Shout out to my little sister. My little sister just taught me a bunch of Japanese. My little sister knows Japanese. So she took it upon herself to force me into her program where she's teaching me Japanese. So we just went to our first lesson, and I can read Japanese now. You know what I'm saying? Well, I can read hiragana right now. Kanji I can't read. But hiragana and a little bit of katakana I can read. So shout out to my little sister for hooking up her big bro. All right, so we're going to do a few more minutes of this, and I'm going to give me some groceries. What are we talking about? What are we talking about today, folks, people, guys, ladies, gentlemen? I heard video games don't cause violence. Do you think this is true? And what about music? I think video games inspire people to learn the techniques of what violence is. It defines what violence is. As well as movies, video games being an extension of film. That's what these video games are today. What do you say when you play a really good video game? Oh, this shit look like a movie. This feels like a movie. It's very cinematic. So it's an extension of film, which is an extension of books and other shit, plays, blah, blah, blah. Music is the same way. Music teaches you what drug dealing should look like, what a black rich man should look like, etc. But I think the actual instances where violence occurs has nothing to do with any of that shit. It has to do with the circumstances in that case. Meaning that take a school shooting, for example, right? Just to be very blunt force with it. Take a school shooting, for example. I don't think that somebody played a bunch of Call of Duty and then was like, I'm finna go shoot up this school. I don't think that's the case. Take selling drugs. I don't think some little kid listened to a Jay-Z record and was like, I'm gonna crack my way out of this. I think take the school shooter, for example. Somebody who had a antagonistic relationship with the people at his school. He might have been getting bullied, right? He might have been racist. It might have been, there's other more immediate triggers that have nothing to do with arts and entertainment. But arts and entertainment supply him or her. And the same thing with the kids selling crack to get out the hood. There's other factors. It's the fucking hood. You know, it's the home, it's the violence, it's the schools, it's the pressure for status and symbols, or for some people just to pay the bills. They're sick of being poor, shit like that. And it's less about a song, you know, and it's more about this song is providing me with the blueprint, no pun intended, here's an option of a way out. Because there's also people who don't do none of that shit. Right? They're in the same conditions. They probably listen to the same music, but they don't. They high school their way out the hood. You know, they college their way out the hood. They basketball their way out the hood. You know, there's certain folks who don't, they counselor their way through. They don't shoot their way out of school. They counselor their way out of school. You know, they introvert their way through school. You know, they go deeper and deeper into their hole. They become super smart. Like, this is something I did because I hated fucking school. I didn't become super smart, but I just went crazy on my work. I was like, I finna just do all my fucking work right now. Like, what do you mean you finna do all your work? I finna do all of the work. What do you mean? Like, I finna do the whole book. So that when I come to school, all of the shit's already done for the next 8 weeks. So I finna just sit back here and read my comic books. Right? Because I don't want to fuck with none of you. Except him and her. And him. And him. That's my man. But the rest of you niggas, I'm out of here. So I think it gives certain people one of those options, and it trains them how to do that. I say that why am I saying that that's particularly true? It's because I've been on military bases where niggas is the machine guns on the base and the drones. Like, if you ever seen drones, like, the shit is like a video game. Same difference. They were controlling the cameras on this one base I was at. And we were actually actively in a war zone shit. They were controlling the cameras on the base with an Xbox controller. Right? Tell me I'm lying. And so there's this direct relationship between the tools of gaming, what gaming looks like. Remember the piece of shit who shot up the mosque in New Zealand? Where he live streamed the shit like it was a first person shooter or some shit like that. Where did he learn that from? You know, I'm gonna say he learned that shit from a video game, right? I'm gonna say he learned it from motherfucking Call of Duty or Counter-Strike or some shit like that that's built just like that for that point of view, right? With those particular option sets and all that goofy shit. So, I mean, there's I don't think that, to your point, I don't think that that video games cause violence per se for most incidents, but I do think it gives certain people the tools to be violent. And I want to live my life like a rap song. I want to live my life like a movie. I want to live my life like a video game. But the circumstances that either incentivize or push you for that to even engage in that option have nothing to do with the video games, right? It's your family makeup, it's the neighborhoods that you live in, it's your circle of peers, it's all this other influences and forces that are pushing you to make these fucking decisions, to be violent. Do you remember where you were and what you were doing on September 11th? I was in the trap house on September 11th. I was in the trap. Is Fauci and CDC connected to the stock market? Because, boy, everything's connected to the stock market, right? Because the stock market is basically a place where people gamble. So if you ever been to Vegas, you can go to Vegas, and people just think Vegas is what? When you think Vegas, what do you think? What do you think? Casinos, right? And you think that these casinos are just what? When you think of a casino, what do you think about? You think about rolling dice and roulette wheels and slot machines and poker tables and baccarat and all that shit. There's another part of Vegas where it's all about betting, So what do you mean? Like, oh, there's big rooms that you go into, and it's basically just, you can bet. There's basketball, football, boxing, racing, whatever the fuck, right? And you can in Vegas, if there's somebody willing to take your bet, you can bet on anything. You can bet on coin flips. You can bet on, there's a great site called longbets.com. And longbets.com is literally, but it's a little bit more sophisticated, the things that people are betting on. Like, they're betting on very specific things, like, will Russia become the pharmaceutical leader in 10 years? Will China outpace Africa in terms of indigenous upheavals by 2039 or some shit like that, right? Whatever it is. So they bet on these very sophisticated things, but it's a bet. It's a gamble. Dude's willing to put up a G. You willing to put up a G? We're going to bet. We're going to sit. We're going to wait 10 years. And it's called longbets.com. It's an actual thing. It's an actual place. You can go there right now. And it's an actual site where people bet. These gentlemanly bets, but it's on very sophisticated things. Some things are scientific. Will we ever find alien blah, 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 right? And people will bet on that shit. So you can bet on anything. It's a place in Vegas where you can bet on anything. Now take Vegas and put it in New York, right? Where the stock exchanges are. Or you put it in Chicago. Or you put it in these places where it has massive stock exchanges. They're betting, but just with companies. That's all that shit is. It's just betting. It is just gambling, right? It's a little bit more sophisticated. You can have insurance. There's other things that you can do. Right now, it's all computers doing the shit. But it is a place where rich people go and bet. Right? And they don't want to sit at a stock. They want better odds, or they don't want to sit at a slot machine and do this. No. It's betting. That's all that shit is betting. And some people are betting with other people's money. So a lot of the mutual funds and the fucking ETFs and all that shit, whatever, that's just betting with other people's money. You're betting with the police officer's money, or you're betting with the school teacher's money, or you're betting with this person's money, and da-da-da-da. So you're betting with other people's money. You take a little piece off the top, or a little piece off the front end, or the piece off the back end, or both ways, or you charge a bunch of fees to manage this. But that's how they make their money. They're not using their own money. They're betting with other people's money, or take 10%, 5%, whatever the vig is. But that's all that shit is. It's not sophisticated. It has nothing to do with that. It's just betting. But what they're betting on is like actual shit in the world. So it's not like they're just betting on imaginary things. They're betting on actual shit in the world. Actual shit in the world, because it's in the world, is affected by other shit in the world, right? So Dr. Fauci going and making a statement about remdesivir, if remdesivir is whether it's a public traded company or private traded company, because gambling happens whenever, right? Because even as a private company, you can still find a way to invest in a private company, right? It just doesn't have to be on the public stock exchanges, right? It could actually be like, man, let me call up the company that makes remdesivir. They're private. Like, yo, I want to speak to the board. Yo, can I y'all need any money? Y'all doing a raise, right? They might be doing a raise or whatever. Or somebody might be like, hey, I want to buy y'all, right? That's betting. Like, I want to take 100 million and buy y'all because I think I can flip it to 300 million. It's fucking bet. Private equity is betting, right? All that shit is betting. Gambling. Some risk and chance, whether you're risk averse, taking a chance. Anyway, what all I said. So Dr. Fauci can come out, make a statement about remdesivir, or make a statement about this treatment, or make a statement about that. And you might, if you're very sophisticated, right? Whenever you watch the news, you're just watching the news for information, right? Or you're watching the news to get upset, or you're watching the news for whatever cognitive bias. These traders, meaning these people who put in the bets or bet their own money or bet other people's money, or these career investors, when they watch the news, the same news that you watch, when they watch the news and say you're looking at hurricane whatever, right? This is 100% true. We're both watching we're watching the Weather Channel. You're watching it because you're just fascinated with the weather, right? Another person's watching it because they're like, oh, see, these storms, Jesus coming back. Look, it's 8 hurricanes right now. That's the sign for Jesus. That's what they're watching news for. Another person's watching news because they actually live in Louisiana. They're like, oh shit, the storm is coming. I need to know where it is because I need to move. Am I going to leave right now? They're watching it because they seeing it happen in front of them. The investor's watching that shit because he's like, this storm is going to disrupt these shipping lanes. And that means that it's going to take an extra maybe 3 weeks for this tanker, which has this grain or it has this or it has X or it has this oil. Shit, that's the shit I'm invested in. And that could have ramifications. Right? So I'm watching this TV and I'm looking at the Weather Channel watching this storm to make sure it doesn't fuck up this shipping lane. I don't give a fuck whether it hits land or not. Maybe I do because shit, I'm invested on land too. I got a couple little things here that I got maybe, such and such might take a hit. There's a Walgreens fulfillment center down there that might get destroyed and that might set them back, XYZ. They don't have to spend money in that. And it's like, oh shit, that's going to affect the stock price maybe. Okay, what reinforces that? There's a great, I know y'all know Bloomberg, right? Like Michael Bloomberg. Michael Bloomberg is filthy rich. Why is Michael Bloomberg filthy rich? Some people don't know. Michael Bloomberg is rich, filthy fucking rich, because he invented something called the Bloomberg Terminal. And the Bloomberg Terminal, where he gets he's not rich solely because of that, but this is like his Amazon moment, right? Is he invented something called Bloomberg Terminal. Bloomberg Terminal is a subscription-based, basically news terminal, specifically oriented towards investing, corporate information, whole shit. It's like $1,000 a month. You get like a little card a little reader that you swipe, and it's just basically tons of this fucking information. There's all these charts and graphs and news and just all this to the most minuscule detail by the second, by the minute, however fast it needs to turn over. And people who watch this shit, they're just investigating and taking in all of this information to inform their bets. That's what they do. And Bloomberg Terminal is not the only one. There's other companies and other versions and stuff like that. But yeah, that's what they use. That's why he has such a stranglehold on certain things, because he controls a lot of information. And his whole thing is to aggregate information, maybe process it, give you raw data, visualize it, And again, he's not the only company to do it, but he was one of from my understanding, he was one of the first to do it at that level. And he's had that for years, decades maybe. I forgot when Bloomberg Terminal dropped. It's called Bloomberg Terminal, and it's just a ton of information. So those people who are watching, you're watching Dr. Fauci because you're trying to find more information for your conspiracy theory. Or you're watching Dr. Fauci because you're really trying to get information on, you're worried about the coronavirus and when's the vaccine going to be ready so you can make certain decisions. There's other people who are watching Dr. Fauci to see that if they close schools, what effect is that going to have on the market? Which companies are going to be affected by it? Which companies are going to benefit from that? So it's like, okay, we're going to move money out of Prentice Hall, because you're not going to need textbooks. If school's going to be shut down for a whole year, then you don't need fucking textbooks. So your textbook sales are finna fucking plummet. Anything physical that goes into school is finna fucking plummet. Anything that normally gets updated through a year to get prepared for the next school year, that shit's a wrap. So pens, pencils, paper, notebooks, all that shit. So I'm finna pull my money out of that, and where's it finna go? That shit's finna go to these digital platforms. Okay, so let me find these digital education platforms. And if it's not even a digital education platform, it's like, fuck, there's gonna be more laptops. So I'll say, cool, let me get money into fucking Dell, or now these schools have 400 kids. They got to give each of these kids a fucking laptop. So laptop orders are finna go through the fucking roof. So I'm trying to make sure that we put money into this. And because laptop orders are going to go through the roof, motherfuckers is finna break them shits. So laptop repair, maybe I'm finna get into that. Or the peripherals. So now peripherals are going to go through the roof. Okay, cool. So now I'm finna put myself in peripherals. Or now I'm finna, just all that shit. Right? You just sitting there watching it because you think this nigga is pushing a fucking conspiracy theory. You got other motherfuckers that are making billions. So if you're wondering how, over the past few months, billionaires then quadrupled their worth, millionaires have quadrupled their worth, is because when they watch the news, they turn around and taking all that information, and instead of trying to go on a message board and talk shit about how coronavirus don't exist, these niggas is going to their broker and they're like, look, pull me out of da-da-da and put me in such and such. And then that shit hits and then it'll catch them. Okay, cool. Now this is coming. Okay, pull me out of that and put me into this. And a lot of these people, they got computers that do this shit. So the computers is the broker. It's like they'll plug in the data, plug in the information, or the computer's already watching and it'll send you like, hey man, I think you should get out of such and such because there's a weather system coming in. You know, there's massive flooding in Sudan. So this is what they're going to lose, but this is what they're going to need because all of this shit got destroyed. Right? So if you're in some type of the companies that supply the food to U.S. aid, you finna make a killing. Or if you're in a company, the construction companies to do this, or you're in car companies. Anyway, it's a lot. So everything's connected to the stock market, but most people are not connected to the stock market directly. But there's a lot of people who understand, and most people don't understand that shit, or they're not interested in that shit, or they don't have the capital to invest at a level that makes it make sense for them, right? Whereas if they click 1%, I mean, you make $1. If they click 1%, they make $100 million because they've invested XYZ hundreds of millions of dollars. You know, it's a different level of incentive. But yes, all this shit is connected to the stock market. Don't ever forget that. Religion's connected to the stock market. All this shit is connected. Religion's connected to the stock market in the sense where people won't invest because of their religion keeps them from investing because they can't get interest. They can't gamble. And at its core, that's what it is. Then you got other countries who are quote unquote religions, but they'll have a sovereign fund and they'll put their money in a sovereign wealth fund, let other people invest that money for them. And then they kind of sneak their way out. And it's easier to do when you controlling what pieces and parts of the religion that you're following, right? The ones that you choose to emphasize, how you hire, who you hire as clerics to create the modern interpretations and to design the law based on your religion to jump over the hurdles or some of what may be seen the religious hurdles. Was it's not really gambling if we're doing this and then we could do it like this and and that's how that shit works. So yes, your religion is connected to your religion is connected to the stock market in ways that you may not understand. How did you learn all this? Because I'm in the Illuminati. I really am. Actually, I'm in the baby Illuminati. It's not the real Illuminati. Because they won't let me in the real Illuminati. Because I'm black. But anyway. Jesus. Your thought about black is the chosen people and all that shit. I don't believe that black people are the chosen people. I believe that black people were the first people. And that for the most part, everything that motherfuckers do in the world, black people did and still continue to do. Maybe not as refined as other cultures have refined things that initially started out in Africa. Nigga, if all people started in Africa, that means most of the shit in the world that people do starts in Africa, right? Outside of just kind of like high tech, but high tech is new. Like technologies, like actual like high-end manufactured technology, like factories and shit like that, is relatively new. Business isn't, right? Exchange isn't, money isn't. But in terms of like a factory that makes cars, yes, Africans did not invent factories to make cars, right? Because cars are new, right? So the fuck? Yeah, we get that. But that don't mean that we had a hand in inventing everything but high technology, religion, thought, philosophy, language, all that shit. All the basic fundamental things that humans still do today, outside of just the high tech shit that nobody in the history of the world has ever done. But then also understand that a lot of don't count out. Woo, you know who you can't count out? The Japanese. Oh my God, man, listen. But you can't give the Japanese all the credit because the Japanese got all their shit from the Chinese. Ooh, the Chinese, man, they invented so much shit. But then it's everybody. It all kind of eventually comes back to Africa. Because that's where everybody came from. From Africa. You know what I'm saying? But I brought up the Japanese because when you think about, there's a precursor. So people make the claim that kind of like, oh, the West did everything for everybody else, right? The West did this first and then these niggas did that. And what they don't realize is that it's levels of refinement based on pre-existing very primal technology. So ceramics became the underpinning for computer chips, right? Silicon computer chips. But it was the processes of hardening in the space of ceramics that informed processes today in terms of hardening, working with materials and shit like that. Like, you don't figure that shit out just immediately. It's a chain, right, of custody that can be followed, right? And there was this one group had it and they did it to a certain way, and this group found out how to pull the impurities out, and then this group found out how to do this, and then this group found out how to do that, and then maybe shit stopped, right? But then it was like, oh no, and then when we traded with them, we traded this piece and they got that piece, and when they was like, how the fuck did they make this? And then they took it back to their people and was like, yo, I figured out how they made that shit. They did this, and we could add this to it because we're close, literally by the lottery of where people tend to reside. Like, yo, we got an abundance of that shit, right? And we got a higher quality of it because of archaeology, because science, because biology, because geology. And so we got a higher purity of this. Because we got a higher purity of it, we can heat it up to a higher temperature, or we can heat it up to a da-da-da-da, or it's going to react to this. And the water that we have here is different from the water that they have there. So the water content is going to make this thing react this way. And if we by accident, I accidentally took it out 2 hours before instead of 5 hours before, and then it had this quality to it when it came in contact with this. And it's just a series of like first movers, refinement, accident, refinement, accident, refinement, accident, refinement, accident. But it all starts with a primal mover. And the primal mover of all human existence is Africa. Sorry. Not sorry. So I don't think black people were chosen in that capacity. Unless you want to say black people were chosen to go first. But I think if you just had a world that was just all black people, and there were no other groups with their particular cultural values and processes, you wouldn't have the world that you have today. You wouldn't have the high tech quality shit. You wouldn't have that shit. If it was just all one race doing all that shit, you wouldn't have that. It requires interaction, interrogation, conflict, and compromise to make the world that we have today, right? The shit that we enjoy, but also the shit that fucks us, right? So you need that relationship, right? If you did not have a functioning agricultural system in America built by slaves, when there was a drought in Africa and a whole group of people would starve to death, if you didn't have the functioning system of agriculture that we have, those people would starve to death. So it's those relationships. If you didn't have slaves, you wouldn't have had this agricultural nest egg that is America. So, 500 years later, there's a famine in this African country or this particular group, and those people are going to rely on aid that comes from those fields that are grown in America that were powered and built by African slaves. Kind of comes full circle and keeps looping and looping and looping and looping. So, that part. Usman, chill out, man. Of course it's all assumptions, but it's fucking true. Alright? Because, why is it true, Wasalu? Because did that country in Africa that was starving, did they get U.S. aid? Yes. Where did that aid come from? It probably came from a field in Iowa. Right? It probably came from were there farms in Georgia, or a farm in Mississippi, right? Or a cornfield in right? How was this country able to become an agricultural force? Right? Because of slavery. What do you think slaves were doing? Motherfuckers was growing shit. Right? So who was investing into this? Why would that place have a drought? Why would a drought affect it so deeply? Because it's a fucking drought. Who caused the drought? God caused that bitch. Okay, what else could have happened? Well, places like, say, I don't know, the Congo, where there was a massive extraction of people and whole generations that were decimated. There was a gap that happened where the one group, the agricultural practices were passed down. Have they dealt with droughts before? Yes. Have they dealt with floods before? Yes. Did it make them extinct? No. So why would this drought be different in modern times? Why would this flooding be different in modern times? Well, because the lessons that would have been passed down through the generations to how to farm through a drought, or how to farm through a flood, or how you needed to migrate to a land that now you can't migrate to because you need a fucking passport to go, or there's a border check now, where it wasn't like that prior. So the moves that you would have to make in these areas, which have been traditionally been flooded or traditionally been droughted, or you found a way to farm through, or there was a different crop that you could resort to, because there was this huge gap in this brain drain of people either being taken into slavery or people just being out and out killed, or other aspects of colonialism in fucking Africa. This generation never learned any of that shit. They went to go work in the factories, or they went to go work in the cities, or they went to go work, or they were forced to go here, or they were sent to America, or they were sent to India, or they were sent some fucking where else. But that whole gap of their relationship to the land was disconnected, right? And the people that resided there and stayed, the new generation that was born into it, they didn't know how to do any of that shit. That's on record. It's not an assumption. That's on record. That happened. It's part of the process that people be like, yo, this is why shit is fucked up, right? And it's those instances where, yes, that's horrible, right? And when this drought comes, what do? I got to get aid from somewhere else. Who's going to give you that aid? You're probably going to get it from China, or you're going to get it from this place. You're going to get it from that place. Okay, cool. Who's responsible for the agricultural revolution if you're getting your shit from America? It's African slaves. So, Usman, leave me alone, man. Talking to you. Leave me alone, bro. I'm not here. I'm done with that, man. I'm not even trying to entertain that. Lupe just hear what I'm saying, bro. I hear what you're saying. The world is not just West. I hear what you're saying. I just gave you 80 perspectives. You just want to be right. Just say, look, man, I want to be right. This is what it is. You don't know what you're talking about. I want to have this power dynamic with you where we can pretend like we're having a conversation or exchanging information. But what I'm really trying to do is just become, I heard all the shit you said, but I'm going to just say one thing that trumps and calls into question all of the shit that you said, which makes me superior in this conversation. It's not a fucking debate. Anyway, we got like 6 minutes left. Yes, 6 minutes. 6 minutes. 6 minutes, Dougie. Fresh your own. What is the Illuminati? The Illuminati is actual real thing. It's in Belgium, if I'm not mistaken. Started in Belgium, the Belgian Illuminati. It was a bunch of guys who got together, white guys, who had some power, mostly lords and different folks. They weren't necessarily the king. They weren't necessarily the superpower, but they might have been the merchants. But what they had was they had influence. They had influence on the people who wrote the laws, who controlled the people. At that time, people thought that these kings were divine from God and other stupid shit. So that's who they had. That's who really ran shit. You couldn't not be a king or not have divine blood or a divine lineage and just try and kill a nigga and come into power. It's just the people not gonna fucking follow you because they like, why we following this bitch nigga? He's not from God. Whereas that guy is from God. So, we believe in God and we can't read. So, what's the difference? So without having an educated populace, those guys probably wouldn't have been able to intellectualize themselves into creating a society. Whereas if you just believe like you don't have to read, I'm from God, then they'll do what the fuck you say. So you had those folks who were basically the viziers, like the what do they call them? Not necessarily the counselors, the advisors, right? And they might have had their own little businesses and stuff like that. And basically they discovered that if they clicked up and got together and pulled all of their influence, they would be able to just control shit from behind the scenes, right? And so that was an actual Illuminati. And then they covered it up with a bunch of esoteric bullshit and secret handshakes and fuck shit and stories and myth and misleading bullshit and blah, blah, blah. And niggas poured more into the shit than what it really was. It was a bunch of rich or semi-rich or influential motherfuckers getting together, setting the conditions because they had access to the channels of power. And just because this king was from God, he could have been a real stupid motherfucker, right? So there's a difference. They had the intellect, but they didn't have the divine right to rule. So what they did was like, look, we got the intellect, we got the smarts, we finna just train these motherfuckers. So something as simple as we're going to teach this particular king. His father was Catholic. So we're going to try and bring in not necessarily full Protestantism to him. We'll teach him a more liberal version of Catholicism because that will have this relationship to our businesses and merchants. At the end of the day, it's all about self-interest, right? What can we do as merchants to put ourselves in a greater position based on the decisions of the royalties or the emperors or whatever the fuck, right? And that's what the Illuminati basically is. But it was an actual real one. Everything that you see today, any group that does that, and there are groups that do that. I happen to be a part of one. There's other groups that do bigger shit. There's other groups who do less shit. Any of those people, but you just can't be a bunch of niggas with some secret handshakes. Even if you rich, right? If you don't have the influence and the charisma and the ear of power, or if you're not powerful yourself, like you are the power player, like you make the decisions, then this shit's not gonna matter. You can come up with as many secret handshakes and secret spells and sex orgies all you want, but unless you have that access to power, or you're not a person empowered yourself, then it doesn't matter. Got it? Got it. And sometimes it does start in private schools, the Exeters and the prep schools, the really high end shit. A lot of that is preparation to put people into those circles of influence. Not saying that everybody's going to get into those circles, because again, these people might be smart, but they might not have the divine right to rule. They might not have the charisma. They might be smart, but they might not have the money. And so what you do is you put all of these people with specific extremes or values. You congregate them all in the same place, right? And their father might have the power, or their father might be super smart, or their mother might have the political will, or this person might have that. And what you do is you pull all those folks together, and hopefully they'll inherit some of that shit. And it's basically a way of just weeding out who's going to be the leaders and who's not. So. Where does the name Africa come from? I think it comes from it's Greek. Or some shit like that. It's Greek or Roman. I don't know. I forgot. We got 1 minute. Let's do one more real quick. Do you think dairy is actually linked to acne and other problems? I believe all things that you put into your body have an effect on your body. Right? If you put a bullet in your body at high speed, it'll fucking destroy some organs. If you swallow a bullet at slow speeds, right, and it goes just into your stomach, it ain't gonna do shit to you. You're just gonna shit it out. Again, if you drink a bunch of fucking milk, with a bunch of hormones and a bunch of other shit that's added into it and all kinds of other crazy shit, then it might have an adverse effect on your body. If you drink some pure straight out of cow's back, maybe not. Who knows, right? What are you cooking with the milk? Are you drinking it straight? Has it been homogenized? Has it been pasteurized? Has it not? Is it raw? Is it this? Is that? So it's levels to the shit, right? So, but does everything have an effect on your body? Yes. Everything that you do, everything that you eat, everything that you consume has some effect on your body, a plus or a negative or a neutral, right? Neutral meaning that it might not have a positive or negative effect. You're just heavier when you eat that shit, right? Eventually it'll pass through you and you'll be less heavy once it's done. Is it a positive? Can you count that as a positive or negative? No. Is it an effect? Absolutely. And coronavirus is still a thing. Make sure that you're practicing physical distancing. Make sure you wear a mask, covers the mouth and the nose. Condolences to the folks who've passed during this time. If you're sick, hope you're on the road to recovery and doing better. Fortunately, coronavirus, blah, blah, blah. Coronavirus is still a thing. Make sure that you're practicing physical distancing. Make sure you wear a mask, covers the mouth and the nose. Condolences to the folks who've passed during this time. Our prayers are with you and your families. If you're sick, hope you're on the road to recovery and doing better. Coronavirus is still a thing. Make sure that you wear a mask. Coronavirus is still a thing. Make sure that you're practicing physical distancing. Coronavirus is still a thing. Coronavirus is still a fucking thing. Coronavirus is still a thing. Make sure that you're practicing physical distancing. Make sure that you wear a mask that covers the mouth and the nose. Condolences to the folks who've passed during this time. Our prayers are with you and your family. If you're sick, hope you're on the road to recovery and doing better. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people with coronavirus. Fortunately, because there's a lot of people with coronavirus, there's a lot of people who've got past coronavirus. There's a lot of people who've recovered. The majority of people have recovered from coronavirus. Yes? With that said, you have a story to tell. You're the expert. They haven't recovered fully. Not everyone. Some people are still feeling lingering effects of the disease because the disease is out of their body, but the damage that the disease has done to their body while it was in their body is still there. So people are still suffering from coronavirus, even though they don't have coronavirus anymore. So share your story. You know, you've probably learned some things, what works, what didn't work. NyQuil is bullshit. This actually works. NyQuil actually works, but just don't use it when you do this. Like those little things, whether you've been hospitalized, you had to deal with it at home, whether you're a young guy or older person, a woman, people are going to go through it in their own ways, but there might be something to your story and something that you did. If somebody's sitting somewhere suffering in silence, don't know what to do. Internet is putting them in 20 different ways. They're throwing their phone in the fucking freezer, all kinds of stupid shit that people are probably doing because they're going off of what people think it should be versus people who've actually went through the shit. So if you're one of those people that went through it, please share your story, share your information. You never know who is going to help and why and where. Okay? House EP, House is myself and Kayla Ellis, featuring Virgil Abloh, Crystal Torres, and Grant Burris, is available right now on Amazon Music and Apple Music. So make sure you go get that. Yeah? Again, this whole chat, this IGTV is just to challenge some concepts, express myself, but it's the sole purpose of this is to get you in the mind state that corona shit is real. Okay? At the end of the day, everything that we do in between is really just to preface and support that message and keep you engaged so you can hear me say that coronavirus is still a thing. So hopefully no feelings hurt. If they are, sorry. Peace.